Welcome to Close Up Radio, where our hosts, Doug Llewelyn and Jim Masters, bring you the amazing stories of people who answered the call to unlock their potential and taken control of their own success with authenticity, creativity, persistence, and resilience. Close Up Radio special guests share their knowledge and wisdom so you, the listener, can live the most empowered life possible. Close Up Radio. And now, here's today's host, Doug Llewelyn.
Well, thank you so much. Hi, everybody. It's nice to welcome you back to Close Up Talk Radio here in the new year. Great to have you with us. We're doing well, and we're glad that we're welcoming a great guest back with us again today. Marilyn Redmond is with us. We've talked to Marilyn before. She's one of the most amazing ladies that we talk to occasionally here on Close Up Talk Radio. She is a healer. She's a spiritual counselor. She's an author of many books, and she's also a medium. And those are just some of the things that she does. She has a lot of opinions on many subjects, and we learn when we talk to Marilyn, so it's always a gift to have her back with us again. Marilyn Redmond is her name. She's based out on the West Coast in Englewood, Washington, where I guess it's a beautiful day out there. Am I right, Marilyn? How is it today in Englewood in Washington?
I live in Edgewood. That was
Edgewood.
A misprint on one of the pieces of information. It's Edgewood, Washington, and the sky is very cloudy, but we have snow in the forecast.
Okay, very good. I hope you're welcome. You're ready for some snow. You know, maybe if you don't have to drive in it, it'll be better. But if you can sit and look at it, sit by the fire and watch it, right? That's the best when you can have it like that.
That's what I love to do, is sit by the fire and enjoy the white outside. It's so pretty.
You know, I was explaining you do so many different things. You've written a number of books, you know, close to a dozen books almost, going back. When did you start? When did you write your first book? How long ago?
Oh, my gosh, it was probably 35 years ago, well, maybe about 30 years ago. I'm a retired school teacher, so when I was teaching school, I didn't have time for those kind of things. But when I was on my own, I had to get a divorce, and I was on my own and in a spiritual path, and all of a sudden, the information just started coming to me.
When you say information, these are all the various things that you have learned that you talk about, and you have some very controversial things that you write about. I mean, for example, you have written that you learned the truth that we've been surreptitiously, that's been hidden from us, and we've been programmed for over 2,000 years to live in fear and trepidation by the government in order to manipulate, brainwash, and control us. And you go on talking. That's some very interesting stuff. And you have a new book that really deals on that subject. Am I right? Called Spark of Truth. Is that right? That deals with that?
Yeah, A Spark of Truth carries the history of the last 2,000 years. It actually started before that, but it became infiltrated into our culture at the Council of Nicaea in 325 A.D., through Constantine and the Catholic Church combined and wrote a creed called the Nicene Creed that changed the focus of what people were to look for answers. And it changed the focus to look outside to authority and someone to save you rather than to look within your heart and find the truth of who you truly are.
Well, you know, do me a favor. I'd like to ask you a little bit about what you do now. I mean, I mentioned your work. You're a spiritual counselor, an author, and a medium. And tell me about the work that you do. How do you help people? Do you have clients who come to you for advice and readings and things like that? Talk about it a little bit.
Well, I do. When people are really having difficulties with their life, they end up on my doorstep. And usually what I've discovered over the years of helping, I'm internationally board certified for regression therapy, and I'm on the American Board of American Therapy for therapy. And in doing regression work, very similar to what Dolores Cannon did, I discovered that you can talk to the soul. And our soul is trying to bring us information to put us into reality. And so I call myself a soul healer, because through all this indoctrination that we also referred to earlier, if you change that information into the truth, that we've had misinformation and we need to find the real truth of what's going on. It's like putting light into the darkness, and the light shines out the darkness, and all of a sudden, oh, I get it. This is what's happening, and I don't need to do that again. That's the beautiful part of past life regression, that people can find out what they've been doing that actually works against their truth of who they are, and so they can move into being aligned with the universal love that created them. So it's a matter of moving from the fear into the love of who we were created in. And so when we find that love, the fear is no longer our resistance. We want to embrace the light. We want to embrace the love and grow in that. And as we grow in it, there's various. My books kind of have a regression, or not a regression, but a progression into how we can move into a higher consciousness of that unconditional love, and that's where we're belonging.
Did you realize when you were younger, when you were starting out as a school teacher or whatever, that you had the ability to do something like this, be a medium and help people contact others on the other side, so to speak? How did you begin that?
Well, I had some inclinations as a child, but in the church they preached against listening to the voice inside. So I discounted it whenever the voice inside came up and gave me information at various times as I was growing up as a child. And through high school and college, I just disregarded that inner voice. I didn't know that was our intuition. I was told not to listen to it. It was the voice of the devil. So when I got on the spiritual path, which was after I left teaching, I discovered that's actually the voice we're supposed to listen to. I happen to have been raised in a family where they were mentally ill and in addictions and lots of sexual abuse and et cetera. So it was not a family where it was in reality. So I never listened, and I didn't know about love. I didn't listen to myself. I was always a very obedient child, so I wouldn't get hurt. And I became an obedient wife, so I wouldn't get hurt because my husband was trying to kill me as well. I got out of the marriage. And so when I discovered that I'd been looking for love in all the wrong places, and that's what addictions are about, is trying to find that love and fill that hole, but it's within, and it's not from the material world. It's not from liquor. It's not from gambling. It's not from sex. It's not from having the best house on the street or the best salary, of all your friends, being the richest. It's from finding the love within. You do have all those neediness. I'm not a needy person today. The needs are filled, and they show, and what you need shows up when you need it. It's amazing how things have come to me that I never expected. And when I didn't plan to be a medium, but through my recovery in getting addicted to Valium through the psychiatrist, trying to help me with my anxiety, I ended up in treatment, and they had us meditate every morning. And the longer I was meditating every day consistently, gradually the talents came. I became psychic, and I could talk to people passed over. At a higher level of that is a medium who can talk to higher realms, which are archangels, and I've talked with Jesus, Mother Mary, and God. And so the more I meditate, the more I connect to the universal love that created me, the more my talents grew. And it wasn't that I set out to do it. It was really I literally was dying 38 years ago when I hit treatment. The doctor said I was dying. And so when I went into meditations, I started getting my health back. And that's how it basically started. It wasn't because I tried to do all these things. They came to me because I started connecting with the universal truth of the universe.
I can't help but want to ask you, did you go see someone else who was a medium of sorts and contacted people on the other side for the first time before you did it yourself? Did you talk to some, past lover or parent or something who was on the other side that came to, they helped you really believe in this?
Well, that is an excellent question because exactly that's what happened. My aunt died because she committed suicide because of her situation. And she was the only one in my dysfunctional family that ever treated me nicely. I didn't have loving parents. They didn't know how to love because they weren't loved. And she was the healthiest one of the family. So when she passed over, I was just devastated because when I was at her house, I was always safe. And several years after her passing, she came to me. I was sitting on the couch in the living room. You're going when they come to my house to film me, they'll see that's where I was sitting on that couch, and she came to me. I was just sitting quietly and not thinking about much, and she said, I'll give you the short version. She said that I wanted to let you know there is no hell, because when churches preach that when you commit suicide, you'll go to hell. And I was just devastated because here was this one lady that was treating me decently, and, I was really concerned about the situation. And she said, I am upset that I committed suicide because I didn't complete my life lessons on earth, and I'm going to have to come back and go through them again. But she said that's what happens is you just return until you learn the lessons, and she was going to have to do that.
So you were just listening to her and realizing that you really were communicating with her. Did you talk to her? Did you ask a question or not?
Oh, yes. In fact, actually, her husband, my uncle, showed up first because he was someone I would recognize. When you pass over, you actually go to a younger age. And she said, I knew you wouldn't recognize me when I was in my 30s. Of course, I didn't know her when she was in her 30s. And so she said, and his name was Byron. She says, I sent Byron to connect because you would recognize him immediately. And then he took me to her. So it was it just happened, and I didn't plan it. And fortunately, when I got into meditating, I ended up finding there's no coincidences. These things are all pre-written before we come in. But I did find a master that I did work under for several years, and I drove every other Monday to be in his classes. And then I ended up in a spiritual church where a fellow came and was helping us with that, being in a mediumship. And he gave me the courage to actually come out of the closet, you might say. And so I was doing this, but I wasn't really making it obvious to everybody because it was kind of new and scary, and what would people think, right? So
exactly.
He had us set up practice sessions with other people, and we would go around and then share what we got in our connecting with the other side, and we started sharing that. And so from that, I did start having sessions where people came as a group, and I would channel. In fact, those channelings are on YouTube that I did with the people coming and hearing channelings and getting answers. And so when people come for counseling, if that's part of what they want, I've had some marvelous experiences where people did talk to their relatives and family on the other side. And one of the first times that happened, it was in a class I was taking to do past life regressions. And the father of this retired minister showed up and to talk with him. But neither one of them wanted to talk to each other. They were both very, very angry. Somehow I just wasn't there, but they talked to each other through me. And all of a sudden, when I kind of came back into awareness, the father was taking off the black blanket he had over his head, and he was happy as could be, and the son was happy. They had discovered their upset was over a misunderstanding, and they came into agreement and connection with each other and thrilled to be back together as father and son. So this happens through me. I have to basically get out of the way and let it happen.
I find this very, very amazing, I can't help but want to ask you, you're the first medium I've talked, and I've talked to others, who told me that you get younger on the other side. That's quite alarming. By the way, if I were to ask you, have you learned what it's like on the other side? How would you answer that question?
Well, I've almost died 13 times. And I've never actually passed over, but what happened is angels have shown up. And I see angels, and I paint their portraits, and many of their portraits are in my books. I illustrate my own books. And so I have connected enough with the angels and the masters of the Far East and the higher realm of information, I guess you'd say. It's all energy, and so I have the ability to go into higher energy and connect on an emotional basis, and the information just shows up. It's a knowing. It's not a head trip. It's coming from your heart. It's coming from within, and it's just a knowing. And I also am very familiar with people who have had past life experiences and have gone and listened to them talk. And sometimes the videos of past life experiences on the internet are wonderful. And the combination of having to connect with it and then hearing people talk about it validates what the information I'm getting. So it's a really good combination. If people want to hear more about the other side, I recommend Next Level Soul as a podcast is excellent. And just validated the information I was receiving. So it was nice to know I'm not alone, so to speak.
You're amazing. So, again, the question is, do you have any idea what it's like on the other side?
It's all love. It's neutral. There is no good. There is no bad. That is a judgment. And that's, religious people look at Jesus, and he came to teach us no judgment and unconditional love with no strings attached. And so on the other side, there is only love, only congeniality, abundance, prosperity. Everything goes smoothly. You can go, and there are various schools, any school you want to go and continue your studies. If you want to be able to connect with your loved ones, they have training for that. When you first pass over, you go into it's like a recovery center or a hospital, because our energy on earth is so much lower than what it is in heaven, or what people call heaven. And so you have to raise your energy to actually assimilate into that higher perception. So you're in an intermediate area growing into that unconditional love. Now, our planet is growing into that unconditional love, and we will all be there about 2026. The planet has moved into what's called the photon belt. That's the consciousness, or the Christ consciousness that created the universe. So as we are moving back into what we were originally created as, we are going to have younger lives. We will not have disease, because in love you can't be sick. In love you can live forever. You're eternal, just like your Creator, because that your Creator is in your heart. A piece of God is your soul. So you have God within, and that's many religions don't look at it that way. They want you to look to their authority. But your inner self has your answers, and it is the intelligence of the universe. And you have the knowledge if you go into meditation and you can ask questions. One of the simple, quick ways people can do this, when you go to sleep at night and you have a question, ask yourself the question and say in the morning, I'd like to have the answer. Now, what happens is when you're going to sleep, you're in a meditative state, but it's also called an altered state or hypnosis. That's a state where you're in a higher realm of consciousness. So when you wake up in the morning before you put your feet on the ground, you're still in that higher state, and the answer will show up. So when people say, well, I'm afraid of hypnosis, no, that's where the answers are. And you're in that state twice a day, even if you haven't been aware of it. So it's nothing to be afraid of to go into meditation. Actually, you're getting the information you always wanted, and it's not from people, but it comes from the source and the love of the universe.
My goodness. I want to point out, you mentioned there's this change that's coming in 2026. That's only 2 years away. Do you really think it's going to happen? We're going to notice a difference in just 2 years?
Well, I think we notice a difference right now going on in our planet. It's all in chaos and crisis, and out of that will come the total peace of what our planet's returning to. You have to raise the darkness to obliterate it. It's been hidden, and that's what my book's about. It's been hidden from us so we wouldn't find the light, and the light is in our soul and within us. God is light. If you understand Tesla, he said the universe is energy vibration and frequency. So in our material world, we put labels to it. And a lot of negative labels have been put to lower vibrations. I have a diagram in the back of my A Spark of Truth showing this. We put lower labels to the low vibrations, and then they've been used against us to tell us we're unworthy and tell us that we're bad and tell us that, you're never going to be good enough. And as you raise that perception and energy into higher vibrations, which are loving, that you're cared for, you're a wonderful person, and you always have been. There's nothing wrong with you, and enjoy your life. Live in joy and compassion. And so this transition is actually occurring now. The darkness is being dispelled, and it's very subtle, but underneath the propaganda on the news and the media, all these changes are going on. And gradually we're going to move into this, what most people would call heaven on earth. And that's part of the Lord's Prayer, bringing heaven to earth. And that's exactly shining the light on the darkness so that the love can finally show up. And just when you put just one little light into a dark room, the light obliterates the darkness, and the darkness leaves. And we're going through that. We're going through it behind the scenes militarily to make the necessary transitions with government, with money, with laws, and all parts of our lives, medical, education. These are things I address in A Spark of Truth. Each chapter addresses one of these medical problems that we've been told aren't necessarily medical problems. Changing our focus in business to being there to support and help others rather than profit. Finding education has really focused on the left brain and being a good little student of what you're told and tested to remember rather than use your own personal gifts and talents for your welfare and profit of what you need for your livelihood. So people have been duped, so to speak, not to live from the light of who they truly are. And these transitions are actually going on behind the scenes right now, and it's a very gradual thing. Our bodies can't handle love all at once. We just can't turn it on and say, here I am. We have to do it literally step by step, inch by inch, and then we move into the now. The problem is we've been letting the past recreate our lives, and, of course, it just continues on, and like I say, history recontinues itself. We're going to change that. History is not going to recontinue itself because we're going to move into right now everything is in God's love. Right now I have what I need. My life is in joy and I'm in peace. I am successful just because I have a connection to my higher power. And we won't be afraid of the future because the future we create the future from where we are right now. So if you're having a good day today and do something even better, tomorrow will be even better. So we do create our own reality.
That's good. That's interesting to hear. I've just been, absorbed listening to you. I was going to ask you, do you think everybody would benefit from going through the experience of a past life regression session? How about that?
Exactly. In fact, that's something I do with myself and with others because we all have a history we have to clean out. And when you do a past life regression, it'll always bring up the right life that you still need. We call it excess baggage.
Yeah.
You don't need to carry with you anymore. And so as you release all the negativity from your past, and it's not just your past life, it's the past life of your family. And one day I was walking from room to room, and all of a sudden it was like this energy was going blop, blop, blop down further, through generation, was coming down through these stages, landing on my shoulder, and I realized and was told, this is the anger of your family, and you're going to resolve it in this lifetime. So we're resolving they call it genetics in medicine, but we're resolving our family history. And not just our own past lives, but all that it's been transferred through birth. Through your birth, you grow into your parents, what they were taught. They grew into what their parents taught them. They grew into what their parents taught them, and we're releasing all of that.
Well, listen, we're talking to Marilyn Redmond. She is a spiritual counselor. As I mentioned, she's written many books. She's a medium, which is, I find that fascinating, to be able to help people contact loved ones who have gone on to the other side. I guess you have to experience it in reality. I've never done that. I'm sure it would be an amazing experience to go through. Let me ask you a question. You have a great website, Marilyn. If anybody's interested in learning more about Marilyn or even getting in touch with her, your website is called Angelica's Gifts. Now, that's a very interesting name for a website. Explain that. What is Angelica's Gifts? It says shining light into dark spaces. Tell me about that.
Well, Angelica is one of my angels. I mentioned that I've almost died 13 times, and what I know is she's been with me, and I've had 5 other angels with me ever since I came into this birth, into this life, to keep me alive so I would have the experiences that I needed to go through so I could get through the other side and have the wisdom and help of how other people can do it. So she's my main angel, and her gifts, my counseling is using her gifts to help me help others. And I have 5 other angels, which include Archangel Michael, who gives me a lot of my information for the books I write. So I paint angels because I see them. I was going off the cliff at the Grand Canyon, and it's a long story, but immediately I could feel hands on the car as we were turning, twisted upside down. It was snowy weather. We slid off the side of the road due to a traffic situation. And we were going off the cliff of the Grand Canyon, and the angels caught us and dropped us very carefully, like we were in slow motion on a camera. Very carefully, we were dropped upside down. Now, there happened to be a piece of land jut out from the canyon, and we dropped 40 feet onto that piece of land. And so, in fact, I drove by that same spot several years later, south end of the canyon, and the road had been moved so that couldn't happen again because there was no shoulder. And now they have a wide space, so if you have to get off on a shoulder, which didn't exist in those days, and it was snowy and you couldn't see the road, people won't have the experience I had. But so I started seeing angels, and when I tried suicide, not only I saw them then, but when I was off the canyon, I just felt their hands. I just immediately inside knew there were 6 hands holding this car, and I'm okay. And when we walked out of the situation, the ranger at the national park was scratching his head, and he said, nobody's ever had an accident like this and came out without a scratch. And we did.
Wow. Marilyn, your stories are absolutely amazing. It's interesting to hearing you talk. There's so many questions I could ask you, but we go off on a tangent, and you've got a lot to say about it. And that's what your website really is all about. It explains your books, and I assume your books go into a lot of these experiences you've had. Am I right about that? That's what they're about?
Exactly. We learn from experience, and experience is actually an energy, and we're here to grow out of the low vibrations, which I prior mentioned, into the higher ones, but we can't do it unless we have the experience. And so many people will say they're having this difficulty and they're never going to forgive anybody. Well, every time you have that situation, if you turn to your higher power, if you turn to the Father of Light, or if you turn to the answers that will come from within, you can resolve whatever problem you're having with the truth and the answers, and right. You align with the universe, and it's no longer a problem. It just goes away when you solve it in love. So,
Marilyn, listen, unfortunately, we're going to have to bring this to a close. I got to tell you, we simply run out of time. Let me give your website again. It's angelicasgifts.com. Anybody who would like to know more about Marilyn, about the books, about the experiences she's had. She's an amazing lady. Former school teacher. I mean, she's on the level, folks. Marilyn Redmond. Marilyn, thank you so much. Okay? Bye-bye for now.
I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
You have been listening to a broadcast from Close Up Radio, a division of Close Up Television Incorporated. For more information about our show and to be considered for future broadcasts, please visit closeuptelevision.com. You may also learn about us on social media and listen to us on podcast and internet radio. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that you have an empowered and productive day.
That's it for today, everybody. I'm Doug Llewelyn. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.